but still no money, and to reach level 3 you need both skills and money. As a millionaire who started off with absolutely nothing, I've been through all of these levels, and if you do too, then you'll certainly be able to make more than $1,000 per day. And don't worry, I'm not going to be suggesting you spend hours watching ads, testing websites, or filling out those useless online surveys. I mean, they only pay a few dollars anyway, so what's the point? Instead, I'm interested in the big bucks, so these are side hustles you can make good money from. Of course, the faster you progress through the levels, the more money you can make. Level 1, no skills, no money. In this level, it's all about using your time as strategically as possible to create the most amount of money. The first side hustle is being a content critic. This one isn't as well known, but it's definitely in high demand. I'm even willing to pay someone to do this for me, so listen up and let me know if this sounds like something you'd be interested in. The job of a content critic is to give unbiased, honest feedback. Honesty is such a rare thing to find. Most negative comments come from haters, and fans rarely like to offer criticism as many people take it the wrong way. The majority of content creators have developed a tough skin and are actively looking for ways in which to improve their content. That's why, if you're a genuine fan of a particular YouTuber, then you could actually be far more valuable than you realise. So if this sounds like something you could be interested in, then leave me a comment below suggesting what content you'd like to see on my channel, and I'll reach out to the people with the best ideas and be their first client. I'm happy to pay a fair amount for a great feedback report from a viewer, and I'm sure many other creators would be open to doing the same. With multiple clients, you'll be able to build up to more than $1,000 in no time. The second side hustle is flipping Instagram theme pages. This is something you can do with just an iPhone and a bit of time. These are pages that are focused on specific subjects. When I first heard that you can make money from flipping these, I was actually quite shocked. Back in my day, I had to actually buy and sell physical products like cars, for example, but now doing this online actually makes complete sense. Just think about it. When was the last time you scrolled on Instagram and didn't see a sponsored post? They're everywhere, aren't they? This just shows brands are putting loads of money into Instagram adverts, which makes the pages more valuable. If I were you, I would start and grow pages in particular niches by posting regular reels. Personally, I'd pick a car theme page, as I used to race cars, so I know the niche has a big demand from advertisers. I've seen some of these pages sell for thousands. A bonus one in this level is using the link in the description to get 16 free stocks worth between $2,000 and $2,000 in return for signing up to Moomoo. They're a great investing platform and it's basically free money. Level 2, some skills, no money. These online side hustles require more upfront work to begin with, but as you develop your skills, you'll be able to charge a lot more than the average person, as you're providing more value, and this of course equals higher pay. The third side hustle is designing thumbnails. I actually ran a competition to find a thumbnail editor for this YouTube channel. I did this on my Instagram and we had hundreds of submissions. You might be thinking, if hundreds of people applied, isn't there too much competition? In all honesty, only 3 designers actually stood out to me in that competition, as they took the time to understand my style, and rather than just creating a pretty graphic, they really considered how they could get people interested in clicking. Creating effective thumbnails is more of a psychological task than a graphic design one. The best thumbnails are often simple to create, but the idea behind them is very clever. Just think, if you can increase a YouTuber's click-through rate by even 1 or 2%, then hiring you means instant profit, and you're justifying your own wage. Out of the 3 candidates that stood out, I hired 2 of them myself, and I recommended the third to one of my friends. If you can master this skill and sell 10 thumbnails in a day for $100 each, then that's $1,000 right there. You could charge less and do more, or even charge more and do less. The choice is yours depending on your skill level. The fourth side hustle is tutoring. Now, before COVID, I probably wouldn't have added this one to the list, as most people wanted in-person tutors. And honestly, This business model isn't great as it's very time intensive, and the amount you can charge is also pretty capped depending on the competition in your local area. However, I really think the world has changed. If you're talented at a particular subject, it may be a great option to teach it online. The key here is to sell the transformation rather than a tutor in itself. I mean, most people don't really go to a personal trainer to improve their technique. They go to become a fitter person. That's why they're always using before and after photos to advertise their services. The same goes for tutoring. You need to sell a specific outcome to a standardized test, such as GCSEs and A-levels in the UK. Facebook is the perfect place to advertise as it's full of mums that want their kids to do better than everyone else's. Trust me, if you find the right Facebook groups, the demand is sky high. The great thing about doing it online is that you can cut out all the travel time, which means you can work with more people and earn more money. You also don't have to just work for people in your local area, as you can teach anyone anywhere in the world. If you're able to sell 10 spots in a group class for $25 each, then that's $250 an hour. Once you achieve this, you can start filling more hours. You may think that people won't want group classes, but if you give them the outcome you promised, it doesn't matter how you deliver it, especially if you put all the students in a Facebook group and offer them support outside of lessons. Of course, if you're selling the outcome of getting into medical school or completing your exams as a doctor, then you can charge way more, as the potential outcome you're selling is worth a lot more money. The fifth side hustle is creating logos. Have you ever looked at a famous logo and thought, that's so simple, I could do that? I know I certainly have, and I'm ancient. So I'm sure you younger guys watching this will be able to master this one easily. We recently held a competition on my Instagram account where we paid the winner $1,000 for creating a logo for our brand, Strike It Big, which is run by my son and I. We weren't looking for crazy design skills, it was all about the idea. Even if the logo was hand drawn, we were prepared to pay the money if it was a good idea. With this side hustle, no one cares what I'd say. This kind of thinking has led to schools giving out awards for just taking part. But I've got news for you. In life, you only get rewarded if you put in the hard work. And whether you like it or not, we're all in a massive competition. So if you aren't interested in playing, go and watch a Mr. Beast video instead. Age 18 to 24 years old. According to the survey of consumer finance conducted by the Federal Reserve, the average net worth of 18 to 24-year-olds is approximately $28,707. However, this figure is heavily skewed upwards, as the top 10% hold 70% of the wealth and the top 50% hold 98%. In fact, the median net worth of 18 to 24-year-olds is only about $8,216. For the purpose of this video, we'll define rich as having a net worth 20% higher than the average. Therefore, if you want to be considered rich in this age bracket, you need a net worth of $34,448 or more. This doesn't mean that you need to have this amount of money sitting in your bank account. Instead, it comes from adding up all of your assets and taking away your liabilities. So here are some targets I think you should hit if you're serious about reaching this figure. First, you should create an emergency fund. Life is full of unexpected surprises. I know in my late teens, my car engine exploded, which was a nightmare. That's why it's important to have 3 to 6 months worth of spending saved up in an emergency fund. This will give you a bit of peace of mind and a financial safety net in case you ever need it. Second, try to avoid bad debt. Of course, I understand student loans can sometimes be necessary if the job you're pursuing requires a degree, so this all depends on your individual circumstances. Third, get a credit card. A credit card can be a great tool for building your credit score and avoiding high interest rates, but it can also be a dangerous trap. Use it responsibly by paying off the balance in full each month. Fourth, invest in yourself. Your human capital is your greatest asset. Invest in yourself by developing your skills and knowledge. This will increase your earning potential, make you far more desirable in the workforce, and give you a better chance at success if you decide to start your own business. And fifth, Learn about the stock market. The stock market can seem intimidating, but it's actually a great way to build wealth over time. Open a brokerage account and start learning about investing. Many brokerage firms offer free stocks to new customers. The best I've found is Moomoo, who are giving away 15 free stocks, each worth between $3,000 and $2,000. So take advantage of these offers to start building your portfolio. I'll leave some links down below where you can pick some up, depending on where you are in the world. So overall, I'd rate this a 3 out of 5 on the difficulty scale. At this point, it's all about setting a great foundation for your life. I honestly feel that great financial habits are made during this age bracket. If you haven't done these things yet, then it's not too late, but it can be harder to get back on track. 25 to 29-year-olds. If we go back to the same study by the Federal Reserve, the average net worth of a 25 to 29-year-old is $49,388, and the median is even further behind at $7,512. This median net worth is actually lower than in the last age bracket. This could be due to many early 20-year-olds not understanding their finances and managing them correctly, causing the gap between the rich and the poor to grow. If you want to be considered rich between 25 and 29 years old, then you need to have a net worth of $59,265 or over by hitting the following milestones. First, save up 1 year's worth of your spending. This should be easy to access in the case of an emergency, but it doesn't have to all be in cash. My son Curtis likes to put some of his money into watches, as he can wear them when he wishes. These can easily be sold if he ever needs the cash. Second, if you have any student loans, pay them off. In fact, if you ended up getting into any bad debt, then make sure this is all paid off. This will be a huge weight off your shoulders, as these loans just bleed you dry. Third, you should have a credit score of 750 or higher. A good credit score is important for getting approved for loans and credit cards with favourable terms. This is very easy to do over the course of about 3 years if you use your credit card correctly by paying your bills on time and keeping your credit utilisation low. Fourth, you need to start making good money. I don't mind how you do it. It could be from a high paid job, a side hustle, or a business. I mean, nowadays it's so easy to set up a simple website and start making passive income online. Hosting are great and give you everything you need for under $3 per month. You can even get a free domain with their annual plans. I'll leave a link below with a 10% discount. Fifth, you should be investing 10 to 15% of your income. This could be in absolutely anything, such as stocks, real estate, watches, businesses, or dare I say it, crypto. You just have to pick the area you understand the most and run with it. Early on, don't try to be too diversified. While you're young, you can afford to take more risk, so find your specific area of interest and learn as much as you can about it. Sixth, you should be completely financially independent from your parents. I'm a big believer in staying at home for as long as you can, but you can only do this for so long. So overall, I'll rate this a 5 out of 5 on the difficulty scale. At this point, it's all about increasing your income and taking a few risks. This can be hard for a lot of people to do. They're either too shy to ask for a raise or start their own business, but this is the time to do it. The fatal error people make is they're focusing too much on saving and not enough on earning. I mean, you can save your way to being rich on a low wage, but you won't get there very fast. 30-year-olds. According to the study, the average net worth of 30-year-olds is $198,406, and the median is $45,315. This is when things really start ramping up. So if we use the 20% rule, then if you want to be rich, you should be aiming for a net worth of $238,087 or more. I know this sounds like quite a lot. However, if you can just focus on hitting these milestones, then it should take care of itself. First, save up 4 years worth of your spending. As I said before, this doesn't have to be all held in cash. To be honest, this would be a bit silly. You want it invested in liquid assets. Second, consider buying a house for yourself. Years ago, I set out to answer this question by creating a video where I invested $100 into 5 different things. Today, I'm going to compare the results from those 5 investments that you can make from your laptop and try to finally answer the question once and for all. We're going to be using this grid to judge each one in these categories. First up, learning curve. This is how long it takes to learn the ins and outs of each method. Ideally, we want this to be as short as possible. Next is passive income potential, which is how much money an investment can earn for you passively while you still own it, without needing to sell it. Then there's tax efficiency, which refers to the specific tax advantages or benefits available for each type of investment that can help you pay less tax. After that, we have risk level, which is about how likely you are to lose money and how much the investment's value might go up or down. And finally, we're looking at the results. This is where I'll reveal my percentage return over the last 4 years and exactly how much my $100 investment is now worth. Before we jump in, please remember, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just sharing my own results and strategies that have worked for me over the years. Please also do your own research. Okay, first up is individual stocks. Individual stocks give you the chance to own a piece of a company you believe in. This can be really exciting because you're directly investing in businesses that you think will grow or succeed. For learning curve, I'm going to say this is high. If you want to be successful picking individual stocks, then it's not just a guessing game. You'll need to dig into the nitty-gritty of a company's fundamentals. This includes looking into the financials, who's leading the company, and how well known the brand is. When I invest in individual stocks, I look through income statements, balance sheets, and cash flow statements. So when I invest in a stock, I'm in it for the long haul, which means at least 2 to 10 years. A great way to learn how to do this is by using an investing app with a demo account, which lets you play around with fake money until you're confident with your strategies. For passive income potential, I'm going to say this is good. You see, when you own a stock, there are 2 ways you can make money. Firstly, if the price of the stock goes up during the time you own it, you can sell it for more than you paid. Secondly, you can receive dividends. Dividends are regular payments to shareholders. Not all stocks pay dividends, but if they do, this means you can receive money without ever selling your stock. This is essentially passive income. Now, for tax efficiency. This is great. If you use the right accounts, then you can reduce your tax burden. In the UK, these are called stocks and shares ISAs. You can set one up on most investing apps and any profits you make are safe from taxes. In the USA, there's something similar called a Roth IRA. These accounts work like a shield, protecting your profits from the tax man. While there are different rules depending on where you live, the idea is the same. Please bear in mind that I'm not a tax advisor and you should do your own research as everyone's circumstances are different. So what's the risk? This is definitely high. Back in 1995, during the dot-com boom, I got lucky and picked a few great stocks. I sold them at the right time and made a lot of money in a short period. But when the bubble burst, some of the other companies I'd invested in, ones that cost me very little, went out of business completely, even though I ended up making money overall. It just shows how risky investing in individual stocks can be, especially if you put all your money into just a few companies. If they fail, you could lose everything. So let's look at how much my $100 investment is now worth. Let me refresh your memory. Here's what I invested in. So I'm going to throw a dart at the board, and as you can see, I randomly selected 20 different stocks, and wherever the dart lands, that's what I'm going to invest in. Now I've just got to put on a blindfold. Okay, here we go.
Oh, you hit it.
Right, let's see what we got. And we've gone into Samsung. That investment is now worth $67.66. But don't forget my dividends. Over the 4 years, I made 10 cents. So that leaves me with a total of $67.76. That's a negative 32.34% return. This example perfectly shows how hit or miss individual stock investing really is. That dart could have just as easily landed on Apple, Microsoft or Nvidia. So let's have a look at how much I would have made if that dart had landed a bit differently. A $100 investment in Apple 4 years ago would now be worth $170. The same investment in Microsoft would be $188. And, drum roll please, Nvidia would be worth $908. Those stocks have boomed in recent years, and luckily I have some of those in my personal portfolio. But this just goes to show you can't just leave individual stock investing down to luck. You have to be strategic with your stock picks, and even then the market is unpredictable. If you want to try this out, just download Trading 212. It's a great app for beginner investors because it lets you use a demo account to practice trading with fake money. This way you can learn how it all works without risking any real cash, just like I mentioned earlier. It also lets you set up a stocks and shares ISA if you're in the UK, which protects your investment returns from taxes. But again, I'm not a tax advisor, so please do your own research as everyone's situation is unique. Trading 212 also lets you buy fractional shares, which means you don't have to buy a whole stock. That's how I was able to own just 0.07 of a Samsung stock instead of having to buy an entire share. As I was going to mention Trading 212 anyway, I reached out to see if they'd be interested in sponsoring this portion of the video. They agreed and are offering a free fractional share worth up to £100 to anyone that uses the code Tilbury when they create an account. Plus you can get more free shares by inviting your friends. Both of you will get a free share as long as they fund their account. I'll leave the link in the description if you're interested. Second is a real estate investment trust, otherwise known as a REIT. I know this one sounds pretty complicated, but it's actually quite cool. Imagine your friend collects $100 from 3,000 people, giving him $300,000. He then uses that money to buy a property, rents it out, and shares the rental income with all 3,000 people who helped him buy it. That's a simple way to explain a REIT. It allows anyone to invest in properties without needing to buy one themselves. Think of it like you own the front door, someone else owns a window, and a few others own the bricks, which means together everyone owns the entire property and shares in the profits. For learning curve, I'm going to say it's moderate, and that's because getting started with REITs is much easier than buying physical property. It's not like you need a huge down payment or a mortgage, and there's no need to deal with agents or solicitors. However, you do need to understand how REITs work. They own things like offices, shopping centres, apartments, hotels, and much more, and they get their income through rent. For passive income potential, I'm going to say this is great. REITs are well known for paying high dividends. This is because the law says they have to pass on at least 90% of all their profits to investors. So as long as the REIT is doing well and its properties are rented out, you can earn a steady stream of passive income. Most businesses sign long-term leases on their commercial properties. Therefore, most of the time, income is pretty stable and reliable. But of course, just keep in mind that your earnings depend on the REIT you pick and the types of properties it owns. For tax efficiency, I'm going to put this down as great. This is because in many countries, REITs offer great tax benefits. For example, in the UK, you can hold REITs in a stocks and shares ISA, which means you don't have to pay taxes on your profits or dividends. In terms of risk, I'd have to say this is medium. REITs are generally less risky than buying a single property because they invest in multiple properties, spreading out the risk. However, they're not risk-free. If the real estate market takes a downturn, or if the REIT struggles to keep its properties rented, you might see both a drop in dividends and the value of the investment. So what's my investment worth now? Let's flash back to me making the investment 4 years ago. As I'm in the UK, I'm going to use the Trading 212 website to put $100 into a similar REIT. Ready for the moment of truth? Looking at my investment now, I can see it's worth $98.59. So that's a small loss of 1.41%. This shows that even though REITs are normally more stable than individual stocks, they're not guaranteed to perform well. My REIT likely underperformed because it invested in commercial real estate, which struggled during the pandemic. But that's not the end of the world, as I made $11.93 back in dividends, meaning I'm actually $10.52 up. So that's 10.52% up. Third is cryptocurrency. Imagine a form of digital money that isn't controlled by any government or bank. That's what cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum are. These currencies run on the blockchain technology, which makes them secure, transparent, and almost impossible to counterfeit. Cryptocurrencies have created massive wealth for some people, with Bitcoin being the best performing asset of the last decade. But on the flip side, it's highly volatile and people have also lost fortunes. That's why I describe crypto as part investment and part speculation, and not for the faint-hearted. For learning curve, I'm going to say it's moderate. Crypto might sound complicated, but I'll break it down for you. First, you'll need a wallet. This is where you store your crypto. Think of it like a digital piggy bank, and there are different types. First are online wallets. These are easy to use, but you'll need to protect them with very strong passwords. Second are offline wallets, like hardware wallets. These are the safest because they're not connected to the internet. Next, you'll need to pick an exchange to buy and sell your crypto. Some popular ones are Coinbase and Binance. These platforms make it simple to trade, but make sure to choose a trustworthy exchange to avoid any issues. Then there's tokenomics. This just means understanding how the supply and demand of a coin works. For example, Bitcoin has a limited supply, which is why it's often called digital gold. For passive income potential, I'm going to also say this is moderate. Unlike stocks or REITs, crypto doesn't pay dividends, but there are ways to earn passive income. The first is called staking. This is when you lock up your crypto like Ethereum to help the system work and process transactions. In return, you get paid rewards, kind of like earning points for helping out. The second is yield farming. This is when you lend your crypto out to others and earn interest on it, similar to how a bank pays you interest when you save money with them. These methods can generate decent returns, but they do come with higher risks. If the coin's value drops or the platform you're using gets hacked, your income could disappear along with your crypto. That's why I personally don't mess with any of this and just hold mine on a ledger wallet. For tax efficiency, I'm going to have to say this one is poor. Taxes are a tricky part of crypto investing. In many countries, even swapping one cryptocurrency for another counts as a taxable event. And if you earn staking rewards, those are also taxed as income. You also can't hold crypto in tax-advantaged accounts like ISAs or Roth IRAs, which makes it less tax efficient than stocks or REITs. In terms of risk, I'd have to say it's very high. Crypto is one of the most volatile investments out there. Prices can soar 1,000% in a year, but they can also crash just as fast. Personally, I just invest in Bitcoin and Ethereum as they're more established and often referred to as blue chip cryptocurrencies. Smaller altcoins can be far more risky. You've also got to be cautious of scams. Since crypto isn't regulated, if someone hacks your wallet or tricks you into sending your coins, there's no way to get them back. So keeping your crypto safe is just as important as learning how to invest in it. So what's my investment worth now? Let's rewind to when I made this investment 4 years ago. So I'm going to jump onto the most popular Bitcoin app, which is called Coinbase, and invest my $100 in Bitcoin and forget about it. Ready for the reveal? The $100 I invested in Bitcoin is now worth $652.24. That's a return of 552.24%. Now, I know what you're thinking. That's insane, and it is. But I have to stress that this kind of growth is not typical. Bitcoin has been the best performing asset of the last decade, but most cryptocurrencies don't see these kinds of returns. Many lose their value entirely. In my opinion, crypto is exciting and the technology behind it has the potential to transform industries. However, it's not for everyone. It's highly volatile, speculative, and requires a strong stomach to handle the wild price swings. Just remember, crypto is all about high risk and high reward. So if you're going to dive in, make sure you're doing your research and investing wisely. Fourth is gold. This is one of the oldest and most trusted ways to store and protect wealth. Gold is often called a safe haven because it's a great way to protect your wealth during uncertain times, like when inflation is rising or the economy is struggling. For learning curve, I'm going to have to say it's low. Learning how to invest in gold is pretty simple. You have two main options. First, physical gold. This includes gold bars and coins. Many people also think you can buy gold jewelry as investments, but you'll often pay more than the gold is actually worth because sellers add a markup for their craftsmanship. For this reason, I personally stick to gold coins. Just bear in mind, if you pick this option, then you'll have to store it somewhere safe. Second is gold ETFs. These are funds that let you invest in gold without physically owning it. For example, in the UK, you can use Trading 212 to buy shares in something like the iShares Physical Gold ETF. It's quick, easy, and you can buy or sell it with just a few clicks. Passive income potential is absolutely zero. Unlike stocks, REITs or crypto, gold doesn't pay any passive income. It's not an income generating asset. It's purely a store of value. For tax efficiency, I'm going to put this as good. If you buy physical gold like gold coins or bars, the tax rules can be a little tricky. For example, in some countries, certain gold coins like the UK's Gold Britannias are considered legal tender, which means you don't pay capital gains tax when you sell them. However, this doesn't apply to all gold coins or bars, so you'll need to check the specific rules in your country. For gold ETFs, they're generally more straightforward. In countries like the UK, you can hold them in a stocks and shares ISA, which makes any profits completely tax-free. Interestingly, physical gold has another unique advantage. It can be used to transport wealth across borders discreetly. That said, this approach comes with risk, such as theft or legal restrictions on transporting large amounts of gold across borders. While it's not something I'd necessarily recommend, it's worth mentioning as a unique aspect of owning physical gold. In terms of risk, now lots of people will try and tell you that becoming rich is easy, probably because they want to sell you some sort of get-rich-quick scheme. However, this isn't the case, especially at a young age. It's not impossible to become wealthy, but you do have to be very strategic. I'm not pretending to sell a magic bullet. In fact, I'm not selling anything. I just enjoy sharing my many years of experience, and I personally believe by avoiding these 8 things, you'll have a much higher chance of becoming rich. Hi guys, it's Mark. So let's make money interesting so that you can grow your wealth. First up, we have extended warranties. I have to say, they're one of the biggest scams out there. Well, apart from the Squid Game token, that's for sure. I learned this when I bought my first method of transport, a Yamaha DT100 motorbike. I paid for an extended warranty, which they added to the monthly payments of the bike. Every month they were feeding on my bank account like some sort of vampire. The worst thing of all is I didn't need the extended warranty, but the salesman used fear tactics to pressure me into purchasing it. Just think about it. When you buy a new PC, the chances are the retailer bought the PC from a third-party supplier, meaning the amount of profit they make is very small. That's why it makes sense for them to push an extended warranty onto you. It's where all the extra profit is made. What people seem to forget is a lot of credit cards offer an extended warranty, so you can just purchase an item on your credit card to get the same protection, and you pay no interest as long as you pay it off at the end of every month in full. Most people just completely forget that they have an extended warranty, not to mention the fine print, which usually makes it very hard to make a claim. So it's good as throwing your money down the drain. Normally they ask you if you want a 3-year warranty. However, the manufacturers cover the first 2 years anyway. So the reality is you're only buying an extra year anyway. So honestly, when you factor in your consumer rights and using a credit card for payment protection, why would you need an extended warranty? I bet a lot of shops don't want you to know this. Number 2 is new cars. What if I told you that a new car was the #1 killer of wealth and financial freedom? The untold truth is that a lot of people take on car finance to look and feel rich, but most of the time they don't even own their own home and are living paycheck to paycheck. I was looking to buy a new car when I was around 19 years old, and I was amazed to find out that I could buy the same car pre-owned for around half the price. So from that point on, I promised myself that I wouldn't buy a new car unless I really wanted it and I could buy it from my passive income. In fact, I actually bought my first brand new car when I was in my early 30s, and it was for my wife. The first time I bought a new car for myself was around the age of 35. I am such a loving husband though. I now have a Tesla Model 3 as it's a great write-off for my businesses, but I still spend most of my time driving around in my old van from A to B. So many people finance their cars, it's gotten to the point that car dealerships don't even tell you how much the car costs. They just ask you how much you can afford every month, and if the car seems too expensive, they just lengthen the payment term so it seems cheaper. Those cheeky chappies, you gotta watch them. The average car payment in the USA is between $500 and $600 every single month just to drive a fancy car, and even when it's paid off, most people just keep upgrading as it's a status symbol. It's like an endless cycle of flexing. Just to drive this point home, average stock market returns are 10%. If you invested $500 a month for 30 years, you'd have over $1 million for retirement, and that's going off 10%. And we've all seen the crazy crypto returns lately, so just use your imagination of what's possible. Talking about crypto, if you want to grab $10 worth of free Bitcoin, then for a limited time, Coinbase is giving it away when you open an account. I'll leave the link below. Third, we have penny stocks. While it's true people have made a lot of money by investing in penny stocks, it's a real gamble. Believe it or not, the average annual penny stock return is actually minus 30%. Penny stocks are extremely high risk investments that usually have very little information and history, as the companies can be relatively new. This could be an absolute recipe for disaster due to the pure volatility of the stocks. Small market caps and low liquidity means it's far easier to manipulate the price of the stock. For example, the big stocks like Tesla have market caps far in excess of 1 trillion, so a few whales selling hardly makes a difference to the price, whereas a penny stock typically has a market cap of under 300 million. So all it takes is a few big sales and it can send the stock through the floor. I invested in penny stocks when I was younger and I had some great luck. This was back in the days of the Wolf of Wall Street. They used to have huge rooms full of salesmen on the phone pumping up the prices of whatever penny stocks they liked. These were known as boiler rooms. This was also they could sell at the peak and make huge profits for themselves. I think I got lucky and jumped in on a few of these penny stocks and sold before the whales, leading to a nice profit. So you may be thinking, why have I put this on the list? Well, the truth is that I got lucky, and looking back now, the potential downside was really not worth the risk. Number 4 is eating out regularly. Now, I don't want to seem like a downer, but the average American household spends $3,000 plus per year on eating out, and that's not even accounting for alcohol as well. When I was building my wealth, I always saw eating out as a waste of money, and therefore never fell into this trap. I learned how to cook at school, and I still enjoy cooking now when I have the spare time. Not to mention, cooking at home is generally a lot healthier.
Well, your body is a temple, Dad.
Yeah, probably Buddha. I think the bigger issue here is drink. Not only does it hold you back financially from your goals, it can also throw you off your game the next day, which is never good. I believe in maximising every day, and successful people don't have time for laying around all day with a hangover. The richest CEOs in the world like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos probably don't mind a drink, but they're certainly only keeping that sort of thing for special occasions. Next up is expensive gifts. It's so easy when you're young to think your friendship group is amazing and you're going to be friends forever, but that's just not the case. I often sit back and reflect on how far I've come, and when I look back, it's amazing how many people have come and gone from my life. Maybe this is because I never bought them expensive gifts. But seriously, when you're young, no one expects you to buy luxury gifts, and if they do, then, to be honest, they're no friend to you. I never saw the point of buying expensive gifts when I was building my wealth, and my girlfriend, now my wife, has never had any problem with that. If love is in your heart, then it doesn't need to come out of your wallet.
You should consider being a dating coach, Dad, with advice like that.
What can I say? I've still got it, son. But seriously, with all that said, it's important not to waste money on expensive gifts, especially for people that could end up being temporary. Every single expensive item you buy for yourself or someone else is a major setback, as early on in your journey it's the most important time to be investing so things can start compounding. I'm not saying you can't buy $1,000 per week. So today I thought I'd walk you through each income stream, explain how I got started and rate them on a scale of 1 to 5. This video is going to create future millionaires because after watching it you'll have all the information you need to build multiple income streams and escape the traditional 9 to 5 life. First is my retail stores where I sell remote control planes, helicopters, cars and more. Many young people believe the only way to start their own store is by launching an online one. Now, I can see why people might think this because there are lower startup costs, a global customer base and you have the flexibility to run the business from anywhere you like. But just because online stores are easier to start, it doesn't mean that physical stores are outdated or unachievable. I mean, just look at the amount of physical locations the Sidemen are opening up, from fried chicken shops to clothing stores. But Mark, starting a retail store requires a lot of money. You're basically saying to become rich, you already have to be rich. Disliked and unsubscribed. I understand it might seem that way, but when I started my store, I had hardly any money. I'd recently resigned from my job and dropped out of school with no qualifications to fall back on. So I simply had to make it work. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it was easy for me, because it really wasn't. I remember on the opening day of my first model shop, I put a sleeping bag in the back of the van because unless I made enough money on the day, I couldn't even afford to fill my car with fuel to get home. So how did I manage to start a shop with barely no money to my name? Well, I got funding, which is something you can do too. I know it sounds a bit complicated, but I took 3 simple steps. Step 1 is to write a business plan. I identified the perfect location for a shop, how I was going to attract customers, how much money I needed, how I was going to allocate that money, and finally, how much money I thought I could make. Back in the day, this was about as far as I could go without professional help, but now you can go one step further and find a free business plan template online to make your plan look as professional as possible. Step 2 is to do some customer research. You have to find a cheap way to test out if your business will actually work. So many people come up with a business plan and get so carried away with it that they don't actually ever consider going out and asking their potential customers what they think. This step is all about going out into the real world and gathering actual data. Trust me, doing this will save you so much money and potential headaches. You may even find you need to adapt your plan. I did this without even knowing it, as I worked in someone else's model shop on the weekend. This allowed me to talk to customers and find issues within the business that I could fix in mine. You can also walk around with a clipboard asking people's opinions, like they probably force you to do on school trips. But if you can get a part-time job in a similar business, then it can prove to be the best customer research opportunity ever. Step 3 is to get funding. I got my initial money in the form of a bank loan. It was very hard to secure, but I eventually got it by knocking on enough bank managers' doors until someone believed in me. Nowadays, there are so many alternative funding options available, such as crowdfunding. If you have a solid business idea, you can use platforms like Kickstarter to raise money by pitching your concept directly to potential customers. Right, time to rank this income stream out of 5 stars in my 3 core categories. Firstly, how much time does managing a retail store take? I'm going to give this a 2 out of 5 stars because, I'm not going to lie, it takes a lot of your time at the start. However, with that being said, as time goes by, you can afford to take a step back, especially when you start scaling it by hiring staff and implementing systems that can run whilst you're not there. Now I probably spend less than a couple of hours a week actually in this store. Secondly, how much money do you need? I'm going to rate this 4 out of 5 stars because although the initial stage of, how do I get the money is tricky to overcome, you don't have to do it all alone. And there are so many investors, loans and crowdfunding methods that can get you there, especially if they see the potential in your business. Thirdly, how easy is it to make $100 per week? You know what? For this one, I'm going to say 5 out of 5 stars. If you're really passionate about what you're selling and you know the ins and outs of the niche, then you'll sell. To be a top seller, you have to make the customer buy into not just the products, but into you. Second is my own brand and product range, which I manufacture in China and distribute all over the world. When I was younger, the idea of seeing my own products on the shelves of other shops seemed just like a dream. I would sit in school staring at my drawings of model aeroplane designs, thinking, how can I make this happen? I always thought you had to have millions of dollars, niche connections, or a huge team behind you to make it a reality. I was wrong. Little did I know, years later, I'll be sat clutching onto my designs I drew as a kid on a plane heading to China. So how did I go from a kid with a dream on a piece of paper to a successful brand owner? Well, I took 3 key steps that you can replicate to get started with your own brand. Step 1 is picking a niche. Back in my day, model aeroplanes were all the rage. If people weren't watching the latest competitions or going crazy for new designs, they were busy collecting kits and accessories to customize their own. It had what's known now as a cult following. You need to identify a popular niche with lasting appeal, not just a fleeting fad. I'd personally start by following Instagram pages and joining in on the conversations. You need to know what the people in this niche are passionate about. Also try to understand their challenges to use to your advantage. Step 2. Keep an eye on trends. Take a brand like Represent, for example. I mean, it just got so popular out of nowhere and ended up on everyone's Christmas list. They recognized the growing trend for oversized clothing within the fashion industry and quickly capitalized on it with their oversized hoodies and tracksuit sets. This is where they really made a name for themselves. It's interesting because if you look at them now, they're moving more towards fitness gear with their 24/7 range because they're following new and rising trends. Here in the UK, fitness has become so popular with 74% of people owning fitness products. I mean, even the nightclubs are shutting because young people aren't drinking as much. It's clear that Represent have spotted this trend and created a new clothing range to meet the demand. You should aim to do the same in your chosen niche. Step 3 is creating a culture. If you can build a real community around your products, that is the secret sauce. It's not just about selling stuff anymore. People feel like they want to be part of something bigger. This way your brand sticks around because customers are all in, not just for what you're selling, but for the whole vibe. My son Curtis recently participated in the Super 10K Spartan race, which was filled with obstacles like monkey bars, rope climbs, and even swimming through icy water. It's become more than just a race. It's now become a movement where people go to test their limits and meet like-minded individuals. They've built a genuine community with around 1.5 million people participating last year. There's even been a wedding ceremony on the start line with the whole wedding party completing the course. So maybe have a think about how you can do this too in your own niche. Now, onto the rankings. Firstly, how much time does creating your own brand take? I'd say a 2 out of 5 for this one because you're going to have to put in the work. You'll have to post online consistently to build the audience, keep up to date with research, and also keep up to date with trends so you can ride with them instead of drowning in them. Secondly, how much money do you need? I'd give this one a 3 out of 5 because you do need some initial capital, but once sales start rolling in, growth can happen quickly and you can then reinvest that money to fuel further expansion. Thirdly, how easy is it to make $100 per week? I'd rate this 4 out of 5 stars if you've completed steps 1 and 2, and 5 out of 5 if you've achieved all 3. Once you've built hype and people are talking about your brand on social media, there's no reason you can't easily make $100 per week. Third is my eBay store, where I buy stock from failing shops and sell it online. Not to toot my own horn, but I made quite a name for myself in the model industry, and people started asking me to help them with their failing businesses. With all my experience and knowledge, I thought to myself, why not? Before I knew it, it became a side hustle. I remember the first time I visited a struggling store and offered them a lump sum in exchange for their stock. I then listed the items on eBay in my spare time, and I was completely shocked by the results. I managed to triple my money, so I just kept going and bought lots more failing businesses. Before long, I ended up with this warehouse full of gear behind me. Now my team just lists these items on eBay for me. It's become a huge part of my business, and I never imagined my little side hustle could transform into something as big as this. I know what you're thinking, but Mark, I don't have enough money to just buy failing businesses. How can I do this too? Well, here's my best advice for getting started with eBay. Step 1 is to identify businesses run by older people. The world has changed a lot and the traditional methods aren't as effective anymore. That's just how the world is. It just keeps on changing and you've got to change with it if you want to stay on top. Unfortunately, some older business owners are just left in the dust. This is where you come in. Step 2 is to approach these older owners and ask if you can try and offload the stock they can't sell, then list and sell it on eBay in exchange for a commission. This way, they get rid of their dead stock and you can earn some extra cash. It's a win-win. Over time, you'll be able to build up profits, and this is where the game changes. Step 3 is to use your profits to start buying directly from your own supplier. This is a huge turning point because you'll be in control of the products you offer, the pricing, and the customer experience. This gives you far more flexibility for profits and enables you to build up a strong reputation as a seller. This is crucial for scaling this side hustle into a real business. Okay, once again, it's time to rank it in my categories. Firstly, how much time does running an eBay shop take? Well, I'd say this is a 3 out of 5, if not a 4, because you don't need to come up with any of the products or designs. You're simply selling someone else's stock. If you've got things running smoothly, then there's no reason why you can't be selling in your sleep. Secondly, how much money do you need? I'm going to rate this a 5 out of 5 because you can actually get started with $0, especially if you're selling stuff for a commission like I recommended. It's really accessible and a great way to get stuck into business and learn on the go. Thirdly, how easy is it to make $100 per week? I'm going to rate this a 5 out of 5 because all you have to do is sell 50 items with a $2 profit on each and boom, you've made an extra $100 that week. Fourth is the stock market, where I invest my money and let it grow over time. I'm no financial advisor, but in my humble opinion, this is something everyone should be doing because without investing, your money is losing value due to inflation. Over the last 60 years, this averages out to be a loss of 3.8% per year. So if your money isn't growing by more than this on its own, then you're getting poorer by the second. In a perfect world, you'd have a savings account that provides an average return of 8 to 10% every year, so that you can both beat inflation and earn some profit. Unfortunately, such savings accounts don't exist. However, you can achieve returns like this by investing in the stock market. A stock is a small part of a company, and when you buy it, you become a shareholder. When you're a shareholder, there are two ways you can make money. The first way is if the price of the stock goes up during the time you own it. Then you can sell it for more than you paid. The second way is receiving dividends. Dividends are regular payments to shareholders. Now, not all stocks pay dividends, but if they do, this means you can receive money without ever selling your stock. You can start investing from your phone. My son has actually been investing £5 a day for over a year now on the Trading 212 app instead of buying a morning Starbucks coffee. It's a bit of an experiment, and as you can see, that small investment is now worth £1,783, which is a profit of £276 or $359 for all my American subscribers. That's a return of over 18%. Of course, past results are no guarantee of future returns, but that's not bad for a little experiment. To set something like this up, all you have to do is select pies and then click the plus button. Now you can select whatever stocks you want to include in your pie. For this demonstration, let's just pick the same investment as my son, this S&P 500 index fund. Now, let's tap add to pie and then the arrow button. Right, tap next and then auto invest. This value projection is really awesome as it shows you how much money you could make based on the historical averages. Of course, when you invest, you can get back less than you invested, as investments can rise and fall, but it's still a great way to get an idea of how much you could make based on data-backed projections. I mean, say we invested £250 per month for 31 years. This says that you'll have only invested £94,250 and your portfolio could be worth £2.19 million. And if we expand this to 40 years, that could give you a portfolio worth of £8.63 million. That's over $10 million. Now, let's rank this income stream out of 5 stars in my 3 core categories. Firstly, how much time does investing take? I'd rate this 5 stars out of 5, as all you have to do is download an investing app such as Trading 212, deposit some money and start investing. Since I was planning to talk about Trading 212 anyway, I reached out to them to see if they'd be interested in sponsoring this portion of the video. They agreed and are offering a free stock worth up to £100 to anyone that uses the code Tilbury when they sign up and fund their account with as little as £1 or euro. Plus you can get more free shares by inviting your friends. Both of you will get a free share as long as they fund their account. Also, don't worry if you've opened an account in the last 10 days. You can still use the promo code Tilbury in the app and receive your free share. Secondly, how much money do you need? I'd rate this a 5 stars out of 5 again. As I've shown with my son's experiment, you can start with as little as the price of a Starbucks coffee a day or even less. Because of the way compound interest works, it's much better to get started sooner rather than later, so that time is on your side, even if you can only put aside a little bit every month. Thirdly, how easy is it to make $100 per week? This will have to be a 2.5 out of 5 because it's very challenging to make this kind of money at the start. As you can see by this graph, net worth really starts to accelerate after the first 100k. For me, making $100 a week from investments is now the easiest thing in the world. So who knows, by the time you reach my age, you could be making far more than $100 a day through investing. Fifth is my residential real estate. I rent these out to families. When I was younger, I wanted to build an income source that would constantly bring in money even if I decided to stop working. So I did some research, and that's when I bought my first residential rental property. It's actually this one, and it's in an up and coming area with great transport links to London and good local schools. But the truth is, I regretted the investment as soon as I bought it. The reality was, it needed a lot more fixing up than I'd initially thought, and I just tied up a big amount of my money. But I was committed now, and I needed to make it work. So I spent every free moment down at the house fixing everything myself to save costs. Now looking back, this was hands down one of the best decisions I've ever made. It's over doubled in value, and along with my other properties has given me a steady income for years. Look, I'm not going to lie, getting into real estate usually takes a big chunk of change to start, but there is a good way to get started without actually buying any property yourself. It's called deal sourcing. This involves you sitting at a computer, finding deals, and then sending them on to real estate investors like me and receiving a commission. I'm always on the lookout for great deals, and so are thousands of other real estate investors. So here are the 3 simple steps you can take right now to start this. Step 1, educate yourself. Learn about the local real estate market, property values, and investment strategies. Become obsessed, watch videos, and read plenty of books. Step 2, build a network. Connect with real estate agents, property managers, and other investors. Attend local real estate meetups and join online forums to expand your connections. Step 3, start finding deals. Look for undervalued properties or motivated sellers through online listings, auctions, or by driving around neighborhoods. When you find a good deal, present it to investors in your network for a finder's fee. Even if you don't plan to deal source forever, this experience will prove invaluable when you eventually become a real estate investor yourself. You'll already possess all the necessary knowledge. In my view, it's a win-win situation. You're learning and earning at the same time. So it's time to rank this income stream. Firstly, how much time does residential real estate take? This is a 3 out of 5, as it does take time to find good deals, and if you're the investor, you might need to put in some work to fix up the property at the beginning. Secondly, how much money do you need? If you're deal sourcing, then this is a 5 out of 5 stars, as you don't need any money to get started. However, if you're investing, then you'll need a significant amount of money to buy the property and also maintain it. Take it from me, being a landlord isn't always easy. I remember when I dealt with all my properties personally, I'd get called up for the craziest of things. Once I even found myself fixing a roof tile during a major storm. And thirdly, how easy is it to make $100 per week? This is a 5 out of 5, as it's relatively easy to make $100 a week. If you're deal sourcing, once you've learnt the ropes, just one finder's fee can earn you thousands in commissions. For investors, you can generate income from both rental payments and property value appreciation. Sixth is my commercial real estate. I rent these warehouses to different businesses. This one is just about to go on the market. This is something I explored later in life after I'd invested in the stock market and residential real estate, and I recommend you do the same. I was interested in boosting my cash flow, and you can typically earn more per month rented to businesses rather than families. However, my warehouses are unlikely to increase in value at the same rate as my residential properties. I'm going to keep this one short and skip to the ratings. First, how much time does commercial real estate take? I'll give this a 3 out of 5 stars. Honestly, it can be relatively hands-off once you've got the tenants in place. However, setting it up does take time, from finding good warehouse space to making sure it's ready to lease out. Once you're up and running, it only really requires you to manage the tenant relationship. Secondly, how much money do you need? This is a 1 out of 5 stars, as commercial real estate isn't cheap and upfront costs can be high. However, financing options and partnerships are often available for this kind of investment if you're not ready to put in all the money yourself. And thirdly, how easy is it to make $100 per week? This is a 4 out of 5 stars, as the potential is definitely there, with most commercial leases bringing in well above $100 per week. Once leased, you can benefit from the chaos. I've been investing for more than 35 years, and as you can imagine, during that time, I've experienced lots of these crashes. However, I always seem to come out the other side wealthier than before. So today, I want to share the knowledge that has helped me make millions through multiple market crashes. By understanding these strategies, you can spot the warning signs of a crash and use them to your advantage. So how common is a market crash? Well, there are three different types of market decline. First is the most common type of decline, a market correction. This is defined as at least a 10% drop from a recent high. These can be caused by various factors, but think of it as the stock market realizing it's getting a bit expensive and cutting back prices. On average, these have happened around every 1.2 years since 1980. The second most common type of decline is a bear market. Now, you know when you're in a bear market when prices have dropped more than 20%. Since 1932, these bear markets have popped up on average every 4 years and 8 months. They tend to keep dragging the market down for about 289 days, or roughly 9.6 months. Sure, that sounds like a long time, but keep in mind that bull markets, which is when the market is going up, usually last around 965 days, or 2.6 years. The third type is a stock market collapse, which I class as an over 30% drop in the stock market, normally within a very short amount of time. Although these are very uncommon, they can happen. In my opinion, if Trump had been unalived, then this could have been a very real scenario. That isn't a political view, just a logical one due to the way the stock market reacts to this kind of thing. The main takeaway from all of this is that if you aren't ready for the stock market to go down sometimes, then you shouldn't be investing in stocks. So how do you spot a market crash? Well, let's discuss the 3 phases of a market crash so you'll know what to look out for. I'll also share the strategies I use at each stage, backed by real life examples from my experience. This way, you'll be better prepared than most investors. Remember, I'm not a financial advisor and this isn't financial advice. I'm just sharing what's worked for me over the years. Number 1, the euphoria phase. This is the stage where the market is at its peak and irrational excitement drives prices to unsustainable levels. During this stage, everyone is happy and flying high. When I start seeing this blind happiness, I prepare my investments for when everything comes crashing back to reality. Before the 2008 financial crisis, there was a couple of things that I noticed that really made me cautious about investing. First was the boom in consumer spending. Everyone had money. They were spending thousands and the economy was thriving. A more recent example of this is the NFT craze a couple of years ago. Never in a million years would I have thought that people would buy JPEG image files for millions of dollars. Things like this are a clear sign of too much money in circulation. The second thing I noticed in 2008 was the increase in the number of people buying houses or refinancing. This is because it was easier than ever to get credit as the housing market was booming, which meant if people were unable to pay their mortgages, then the banks could take back the properties without losing any money. Now, it's one thing noticing these little clues, but it's another thing actually taking action and preparing yourself. Between 2007 and 8, I could have just gone along with the crowd, as the general herd mentality was that everything was great and nothing would ever go wrong. But instead, I started to prepare my investments for the worst. At the time, lots of my friends and fellow business owners didn't quite understand the decisions I was making. They may have even seen me as a bit of a coward, but from my perspective, I don't think they understood how much risk they were taking. So if your spidey senses start tinkling, these are some of the things you can do to prepare yourself for the worst. First, I would evaluate and minimize your risk level wherever possible. Personally, I'm not focused on chasing crazy high returns as that's unsustainable for the long term. I just want to be making reasonable gains consistently so my money compounds. I always think about the story of the tortoise and the hare. I know it might sound boring, especially coming from a boomer, but slow and steady does win the race. If you're new to investing, there's a high chance you haven't experienced a real market crash. It can be horrifying to see your portfolio completely halving in value and sitting deep in the red for a brief period of time. So you have to ask yourself if you could mentally handle this kind of drop without selling your investment. Secondly, I would start to reduce my leverage. Now, on one hand, leverage is a great way to accelerate wealth, but it can also be very dangerous. The thing is, if a stock crashed too far, then your investing platform may issue a margin call, which means you have a limited amount of time to pay off your debts. And if you don't, your brokerage may sell your stocks at the bottom of the market to recover the money you borrowed. If this is something you're considering or even doing, then if I were you, I would be paying some of this debt off. I never use margin, but that's a personal choice, and I'm well aware that by not taking on this risk, I'm missing out on some potential profits. The truth is, I've seen too many of my friends go from millionaire status to broke in a blink of an eye, and now I just stay well clear of it. Thirdly, I'd start saving some extra cash in a high interest savings account. I know I bang on about having an emergency fund of 3 to 5 months of your living expenses, but I'm talking about saving even more. I did this between 2007 and 8. From the outside, it looked a bit strange. The market was booming, and by leaving my money in the bank, I wasn't taking advantage of it. However, I noticed that more and more people were getting interested in investing, which tipped me off that there was a bit of a bubble forming. You see, when everyone starts getting comfortable with the idea of investing, it can be a sign that things are about to pop, as pricing is being propped up by inexperienced investors. The trouble is that at the first sign of a crash, lots of these people panic sell, which drives the prices down even further, leading to a spiral of doom. Finally, in this stage, I would make sure my investments were properly spread out. This is called diversification, and it's one of the best ways to help withstand a market crash, as quite simply put, you haven't got all your eggs in one basket. This is all because you never know what sector is going to be hit the hardest. During the good times, it can be very common for people to do very well with 1 or 2 stocks and end up with most of their money focused in only a couple of different companies. Even if they start out with lots of different stocks, it can almost seem silly to put your money into other things when one stock outperforms all your others. Let's use some of my favorite stocks as an example. Say you have $1,000 to invest. Now, you could put all of that into Tesla with the hopes of it going to the moon, but if Tesla gets hit the hardest in a market crash, it won't be great news for your money. Whereas investing into a total US stock market fund would spread your money across multiple different industries. Look, nobody can predict if the stock market's going to go up or continue downwards. However, diversifying goes some way to reducing your risk. Yes, you can't guarantee returns, but at least you're investing in a broad range of sectors. Another great way to diversify while guaranteeing a return on investment is through something called a high yield cash account. Take a look at this, for example. Let's say you have $5,000 to put by with an additional $250 being saved monthly. Within 5 years, you'd have earned $3,493 without making a risky investment, because the account pays you 5.1% interest that compounds daily. Public offer this account with 0 fees or subscriptions required, as well as giving you the ability to invest in thousands of stocks and ETFs with very low fees. I was planning on mentioning Public anyway, so I reached out to them to see if they were interested in sponsoring this video. They agreed and are offering a free stock worth up to $300 to anyone that signs up and funds their account. Just sign up for Public, deposit $20 or more, and enter the code MARK2024 via the Rewards Hub in the Public app. I'll leave a link in the description if you're interested, along with some other options if you're not in the USA. Number 2, the reckoning phase. I like to call it this, as everyone gets rudely punched in the face with the truth, and only the ones that know how to navigate it will be able to hold their nerve and make some money. This is the phase where the reality of overvaluation sets in, triggering widespread panic and sell-offs. What I'm trying to get at is in this phase, the stock market just comes tumbling down, and it's next to impossible to be unaffected. Even my son knew something was happening in 2008, and he was only 10. The number of customers that came into my hobby stores halved overnight, and even when they did come in, they didn't spend anything. On the bright side, I had lots of products which I owned, and my warehouse